Muy buenas chavales, bienvenidos y bienvenidas a otro vídeo para el canal. ¿Qué tal estáis chicos? ¿Qué tal esta semanita buenísima de cojones? Ya está terminando por fin. Qué rápido pasan las semanas, qué auténtica locura. El calor sigue matándome poco a poco, pero yo aguantaré todo el verano como que me llamo Borja. Y nada, espero que estéis muy bien chavales, ya llega el fin de semana, espero que descanséis la mayoría de vosotros y los que trabajéis, como siempre os digo, muchísimo ánimo en el curramen. Y nada, si estáis comiendo, cenando, merendando, desayunando, almorzando, que os aproveche mucho ese jami jami. Y nada, si me estoy ahora mismo grabando de noche, ¿vale? Hace 2 días, bueno, creo que ayer o antes de ayer, no me acuerdo, se me rompió la luz de la habitación. Tengo que ir a por una bombilla y cambiarla, pero bueno, ya iré. Así que ahora estoy con la iluminación de bloc de notas. O sea, esto que me da iluminación es el bloc de notas. Fijaros, voy a quitarlo, veréis cómo me quedo casi en oscuras. Bueno, se me sigue viendo por lo que la luz que me da la pantalla, ¿vale? Pero bueno, entonces fijáis ahora por el bloc de notas, tengo algo de luz. Así que nada, pensé que iba a hacer el vídeo sin cam, pero bueno, se me ve. Eso, estoy grabando a las casi 12 de la noche, ¿vale? Hoy no he tenido tiempo para grabar durante el día. Siempre grabo durante el día, siempre. Esto lo hago muy poquitas veces, pero es que está Celia enfermita y he tenido que estar cuidando a mi hija durante todo el día, bueno, todo el día, cuando llegaba a trabajar, ya me entendéis. Entonces no he podido grabar. Hoy no podía hacer nada. He estado con mi hija cuidándola y bueno, y cuidando también a Celia, que está enfermita. He estado cuidando a las dos, a las dos reinas de casa. Así que por eso no he podido grabar, más que nada. Pero bueno, que espero que la semana que viene Celia esté mejor y ya pueda grabar con normalidad y con luz solar y toda la pesca. Así que nada, en el día de hoy traemos otro partido de DBDLEAGUE que fijaros que ese partido pensé que no, o sea, yo cuando vi los equipos dije, estos dos equipos no voy a grabar la partida de estos equipos porque JINX, bueno, hablo de estos equipos porque ya no, JINX digamos que es un buen equipo, sin duda todos los equipos del que hay en la DBDLEAGUE son buenos equipos, pero JINX ha sido siempre un equipo de tabla media-baja, ¿vale? Así que digo, estos 4 jugadores que son los suplentes de Jinx son jugadorazos, ¿vale? Al lado nuestro son dioses, literalmente. Pero lo que es para el nivel de la liga es una tabla media-baja, básicamente. Y NOKRON dije, ¿qué es este equipo? NOKRON, este equipo es nuevo, no sé ni quiénes son. Y resulta que lo habréis visto en la miniatura, me imagino, supongo. Es el equipo de los españoles. Está Iván, está Zaka, ¿y quién más estaba? Joder, eso es normal. Bueno, luego les vamos a ver igualmente. Que es que soy retrasado mental y ya me conocéis, pero bueno. Que entonces a ver qué es el equipo de españoles, digo, voy a traerlos porque son jugadorazos los jugadores que hay españoles en este equipo. Digo, voy a traerlo, vaya solo por ellos, merece la pena analizar el partido. Y nada, ya sabéis que es al mejor de 5, es decir, que me hace 3 victorias, gana. Y nada, vamos a ver los partiditos. Primer partido ya estamos viendo que van con el Ghoul. Yo, primera vez que voy a analizar Ghoul en competitivo, me parece. Lo he visto en públicas mucho, mucho, mucho. En competitivo, creo que la primera vez o la segunda, me parece. No, en el Mundial le vi una vez, me parece. No, en el Mundial creo que le vi una vez. Diría que esta es la segunda. Y ya sabéis que es un killer muy. Se juega en Pozo de Sangre y que es un mapa bastante fuerte para superviviente. Las cosas como son, antiguamente se jugaba en este mapa contra deterioro, ahora ya no. Se juega contra Hillbilly en este mapa, que son tier S, ya lo sabéis. Entonces, bueno, obviamente este killer lo ven bastante fuerte y necesitan un buen mapa para que los suplentes se protejan. Y bueno, obviamente yo al Ghoul le veo un killer muy fuerte, por debajo de deterioro y por debajo de Hillbilly. Pero bueno, seguramente sufra. Va con el paraguas, ya sabéis que es el lado más roto que tiene este killer. Iba con pim pam pum, erupción ancho por delante y tanatofoya. Tanatofoya, pues ya sabéis que este killer hiere muy fácilmente, muy, muy fácilmente. Tirar ya es más complicado, pero herir es súper fácil. Yo diría que es el killer que más fácil hiere del juego. Por detrás de la plaga, diría, incluso es más fácil herir con este killer que con Legión. ¿No? Imaginaros, pero junto a plagas diría los dos killers más fáciles de herir. Y nada, 3 pers para motores, las más fuertes que hay actualmente, ya lo sabéis, quitando intervención corrupta y bueno, y junto a ruina, ¿vale? Entonces, nada, va a haber solamente bastantes cuelgues, quiero pensar, pero no creo que no creo que salga 4K. Pero bueno, vamos a ver que este killer es muy fuerte y puede dar sorpresas. Así que nada, va a empezar Zaka de killer. A ver qué tal va con el Ghoul. Vamos para allá.
I don't think anyone saw that on stream yet, but we just saw the Ghoul sliding around, so Zaka seems very ready based on that animation.
Yeah, that reminded me a lot of those bugs with the healing animation, or where the survivor that is being healed gets stuck.
Empezar sin intención corrupta, ya sabéis que la primera chase te pueden dar por todas partes. Lo suyo que la primera chase yo vamos, iría a saco o herir y me voy a buscar a otro. Yo creo que va a hacer eso, Zaka, porque empezar sin intención corrupta, ostras, como no empieces fuerte, va a ser un gran problema para hacer goles luego.
In that position of being kneeled down, that's basically what Zaka just went.
Vamos, yo creo que va a herir y va a ir a por ese superviviente. Que ya vemos por aquí a Max. Por cierto, de este conjunto de jugadores, conozco a estos tres, Match, Moon y Dark, ya los he visto jugar. Kay para mí es nuevo, ¿vale? No sé qué tal jugará, imagino que será bastante bueno, obviamente, si no, no estaría aquí. Pero estos tres juegan bastante bien, la verdad.
Through for the first 3 seconds. And then, well, yeah, it was only standing up. We're getting our first share here of the ability. This killer gets those first hits practically for free every time. It really only gets interesting after. Because no matter...
Este no me acuerdo si es el Ghoul nerfeado. Este vídeo es de hace 2 meses, ¿vale? Esto es hace 2 mesecitos. No me acuerdo si aquí está Ghoul nerfeado. Pero ahora lo veremos. Si parte el palet y pierde el poder, significa que está nerfeado, ¿vale? Si no, significa que todavía es el Ghoul bufado.
No matter where you are, you'll always be able to hit that tentacle and get the deep wound even. And people will not be able to use nade for this, as is banned on this killer. So don't expect
Sí, ya está,
anyone
adiós.
to have it. Oh.
Qué roto, ¿eh? O sea, es que no puedes hacer nada en un palet así que sea un pelín largo, como es este de los coches. Te pilla por detrás y no llegas. Es que no llegas.
And now that's a very dream start for Zaka here. He's not
Me encantan los tentáculos invisibles.
joking around with the Ghoul. First chase, first down coming in as quick as possible. 47 seconds under the minute mark. That's
Vale, buscando un gancho para adelante cuanto antes.
also explains why corrupt intervention isn't really needed for Zaka, because
Yeah.
it would have just been an empty slot basically. Good attempt here from the survivors in the distance on the generator, 50% already, so they know that they do not get a lot of time when Zaka
Interesante, va con esta perk, muy interesante. Esta perk es para que si hay algún tótem de maleficio en la partida, que no es el caso, porque no hay ruina, te puedes levantar solo. Así que no va a tener la parte buena de esta perk.
is at the Ghoul, and they already have to debate who's going to take the first unhook. Free kick on the generator in the distance.
Como supervivientes, lo mejor que podéis hacer contra este killer es que no tenga visión directa a vosotros, ¿vale? Porque sí que os va a poder meter lo del círculo rojito, ¿vale? Para que él tenga tres tentaculazos, por así decirlo, 3 viajes con los tentáculos, pero no os hiere, ¿vale? Solo os pone la marca. Pero eso tenéis que crear que haya algo en el medio, algunos obstáculos, alguna historia.
And off we go on to K. This is explaining us why the Ghoul is one of the strongest killer behavior
Ya es cuando va a empezar a jugar a herir, tenéis a todos heridos, jodidos, con tanatofobia, tal, no sé qué.
has released in a long time.
Yeah, noting on strongest, we weren't sure entirely whether to put him in tier 2 or tier 1. At the moment, people were arguing for both. We've decided to put him in tier 2 for now. So we'll really have to see how that develops throughout the tournament. Maybe we'll have to do some adjustments. But yeah, what Zarko's already showing practically is the mobility is incredible on this killer. You are practically all...
Qué asco, Qué asco. Es que no puedes hacer nada en un jungle gym con el palet tirado, tío. Es una locura lo que está... O sea, no sé si soy consciente de que un jungle gym con palet tirado se ha merendado superviviente, tío, en 6-7 segundos.
over all the time. And then they're also super powerful in chases because you can practically always catch up.
Erupción ya sabéis que beneficia bastante al túnel porque obviamente el que sale del gancho está herido, lo tienes que tumbarle y ya erupción se activa, así que es una perk que beneficia mucho a la gente que tunelea.
And we already
Raro que el bot no se la ponga.
see Zarka using the ability of the Ghoul to also vault over pallets. You can catch up so much faster than as with Mastermind. It's incredible. And yeah, these chases are going to go by very quickly, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially also that we put him on Blood Lodge, which is a very open and large map where the Ghoul again can sort of just swing around like he's in the jungle on those vines.
Sprint para mí versus Ghoul no... la veo malilla, sinceramente, porque como te puede ir desde bastante lejos y de por sorpresa.
Yeah, he's just going to be all over, and the survivors may be able to play a tile, but once that's gone, Zaka will be faster catching up to them than they will be connecting to another tile. And we're already seeing that with Mats here. Second stage, 4 gens left. You might confuse this with Nurse with how quickly the game's progressing.
Yeah, and what you mentioned is important, right? Tier 2 balancing at the moment, so he might even be a little bit more dangerous than the Nurse, especially in the hands of Azaka. Beautiful defense strategy that we see here, always trying to switch between the generators and back to the hook.
No están haciendo nada, ni motores, ni descolgar. Veo un poquillo verdes en esta primera partida de JINX.
In case there's someone moving in, they will immediately find themselves in the chase with the Ghoul, but now Zaka had to wait a little bit until the power is coming back, and that's perfect here for Moon, who came in as the rescuer. Perfect timing by JINX. Zaka
Este pared es malillo, ¿vale? Es malillo.
getting ahead
Hace falta mucha templaza por parte del superviviente.
of the survivor, forcing them back into the filler pallet between the rocks here. Now it's a patience game, but there we can
Viene el superviviente ahí.
see the experience from these 1v1 players. They are not dropping the pallet just for free. Zaka will have to work a little bit harder.
Muy buena ahí el de... Si os fijáis, parecen... Estos son tonterías, lo voy a dar para atrás otra vez, ¿no?
But there we can see the experience from these 1v1 players.
Vale, se ven los cambios de cámara así rápidos, que parecen no, pero molestan supervivientes.
They are not dropping the pallet
Y aquí
just for free.
tiene blulas de nivel 1, ¿vale?
Zaka will have to work a little bit harder.
Pum. Y antes se aleja un poquito para detrás, parece no, pero eso digamos que también molesta al superviviente porque no sabe si vais hacia un lado o hacia otro, pierde un poco de perspectiva y luego va hacia la izquierda, sabe que el superviviente va a tirar al palet de una, pum, y golpe. Perfecto, aquí Zaka.
They're building up the blood now, and with a wonderful swing, taking Mats back onto the floor here. Any rescuers? The answer is no. So Mats is just going to get right back onto the hook, and that means we are already losing a survivor. Second generator coming out, but a 3v1. This
¿Veis? Sprint, ya os digo, no es buena per contra este kill.
early in the trial will be pretty difficult for JINX to deal with.
Yeah, that's incredible, and not to mention, the next generator is not even at the 50% mark yet. Yeah, this killer is just so and there he goes! So brutally powerful. We're seeing it now, and one thing that I've seen a lot of content creators point out, that he's still very fair, however, because what we saw with Matt
Va a meter pam pum, muy bien hecho.
here, once Zaka and Mads were on that tile, he was forced to basically do what any any M1 killer has to do. So sort of just play off
Están muy jodidos, ¿eh? Yo creo que van a hacer un motor más, sinceramente.
mind games, and he can't really use his ability on tiles that are that small. He can still
Mete la erupción, muy importante.
fall over pallets once the tile is
Uy, ya falla el detector.
dropped, but as long as the pallet is up, he kind of still has to play that 1v1 mechanic, or that M1 mechanic. Yeah, we're seeing it here again now.
Veis aquí la Nancy aguanta menos el palet, el Age lo había jugado mejor.
Now the pallet is dropped, but Zark also just probably wins the mind game here. Oh no. The vault back over. Moon will be able to prolong it for a bit, as he's winning
Esto es 50-50. Una vez no va a colar y ya está.
the second 50 in a row. Now Zaka's trying to use that ability to catch up, but it's still not fast enough, and Moon comfortably makes another loop around. And now it's the...
Muy bien aquí Moon, lo está jugando muy bien.
Oh, beautiful.
Ha tirado palet rápido, pero coño, con el palet tirado está jugando súper bien.
Now it's those 50s. What we talked about earlier, right? The 1v1 experience. Oh, beautiful.
¿Ves qué asco? Es que no te da tiempo de llegar a nada, te hace pum pum y se pone al auto ya y ya está, al pozo.
Oh, you saw how he left around him there, so he couldn't get to the tile?
Muy rápido ataca con los poderes, me estoy flipando.
Wow.
That's the strength of this killer. You have to pre-leave so early, and also because he's using the
Recordad que esto es un gancho flagelante, ya lo he usado con Matt.
fresh coffee add-on, the purple one, that increases his movement speed by 2 meters a second for every during the leaps. He's just gonna be able to catch people off guard so much quicker.
Hostia, peor al lado de tú.
Similar to how a Wraith would operate with Windstorm, where it's all about
Ah, no, a la Nancy, perdón.
body blocking.
Chavales, te dan ganchos. Estoy tonto, chavales, es de noche y ha sido un largo día.
And this killer also has that mechanic, which makes him so unique.
I really love how Zaka seems to have his Ghoul prepared, you could say. We need to keep in mind it's still a killer.
Claro, todo Dios herido, ¿quién va a rescatar? Nadie puede rescatar.
That just was the last release, basically. So the practice time is really not the longest compared to some killers like Unknown or Blight that we are having in this tournament here. But Zaka seems
Esto lo hace para tener los 3 viajes, ¿vale?
like he has played the Ghoul since forever, basically. He doesn't give JINX the needed time that they have to catch for the generators. They do not have a chance to do anything for free here. They're constantly running after the pressure. Right now, Moon is with the responsibility to save
Agilidad muy buena.
Dark, meaning no one can take care of the generators. So if Zaka just keeps grinding like this, if the pressure stays like this, we might be in a win condition
Ayer el segundo viaje lo ha tirado un poco en vano.
where 3 generators will be enough for Team NOKRON in the upcoming trial to be the win. But we catch someone here. Moon actually sacrificed Dark, at least 1 hook stage in order to take care of the Shack gen. Zaka just catching that last second here. But Mathis, we can tell from this, JINX realizes the generators
Hostia, qué cojones ahí la Nancy, ¿cómo ha hecho eso, tío? Menos reverse.
need some priority because it's getting tricky.
Un poco falso de decir, la verdad, porque había metido el cuerpo Zaka, había fallado el hit, pero había metido el cuerpo, no sé cómo Moon ahí ha pasado al otro lado.
Here, whoa, what was that? Very well played.
Oh, you got that Palestine last second and reversed him. You know, I want to talk about the macro gameplay here because it reminds me a lot of how
Ahora Zaka se está golpeando un poquito.
This used to be played, or was played last year, and that's sort of become the new meta. And this is why this killer is even stronger doing so, because again, his mobility is the best in the game. Yeah, as
Aquí Kei ha pecado de venir muy rápido al motor, demasiado rápido.
you can see, just K being caught off guard in open field, and then there's hardly anything you can do really. But yeah, what this killer does, you tunnel one guy out, and then you've got your 3v1 enforced, and what then you then proceed by just going around the map, because you're practically everywhere at all times again. You keep everybody injured, and then you just wait for one survivor to be out of position. That's a down, leave him slugged, go back to the other people, slug him. So, if you... Realistically speaking, if the killer doesn't
Muy bien, Moon, está jugando súper bien.
commit any major mistakes, be it decision
Que Zaka también lo está haciendo bien, con los 28 y tal, pero es que Moon lo está haciendo súper bien.
making or mechanical, or he overcommits to a chase and just can't catch the survivor, then it's just stuck in this...
Muy bien, aquí Zaka va por otro lado pegando la curva y hace o saltas o te hago body block con el cuerpo. Tú eliges, has saltado y Zaka por detrás. Perfecto, es un win-win para ti.
Endless loop here, where you just have one survivor out and then it's already GG, because he's all over the map, can down people constantly, and they're not getting any gen progress here. The only thing that's happening is Zaka's getting progress on the bleed out bar, and we don't punish those, so if you bleed out, that counts as a kill.
Ya les va a tener dando vueltas toda la partida, ya no creo que hagan más motores. A no ser que dejen a Moon en el suelo y que no se vaya a hacer motor. Eso podría pasar también.
We also saw a nice attempt by Moon there, trying to basically vault back into Zaka. The hitbox is a bit iffy. I didn't really understand when I 1v1'd the killer earlier, or a couple of weeks ago when he came out.
Se están jugando muy bien. Este de roca larga y roca gorda con un par en medio, eso parece no, pero como tiradores no es tan fácil como parece jugar, lo están jugando perfecto.
But yeah.
Contra un killer que hace midgames, que no es un killer que va como un toro.
Now we see the weakness of the killer is just like basically these tiles as long as you're on them, but it's...
Vale, os dije que es el killer nerfeado porque ha perdido una carga, ¿vale? Entonces es el Ghoul nerfeado.
Darker gets rid of them, makes the map a dead zone. He's again just all over. And the survivors can't really reach anything. Yeah, that recovery is just so quick.
Es que se recupera demasiado rápido de muchos.
I'm really grateful they nerfed the umbrella or changed the umbrella add-on.
Claro, esto es por el add-on que dicen que es el paraguas, que es el add-on que es fuertísimo.
Because it used to make that recovery even faster. Hello, that looked like a blink. But yeah, it used to make your recovery so much faster, but now they've changed it, and people are still using it. Interestingly enough.
Y el paraguas creo que fue nerfeado, si no recuerdo mal.
I'm just absolutely in love with what we see from Zaka here. Making a killer that just got released look like you had 5 years to practice. What I'm also in love with on the other side, though, is that JINX is still standing. I think this is something that just needs to be pointed out, because this had a chance to end in a 4K.
Tiene los moteros como en un círculo perfecto, una elipse, mejor dicho. La verdad que quizá acá ha tenido mucho suerte con el tema de los motores.
2 or 3 times already, I felt like, in the trial, and it is only due to the good coordination of the survivor team dragging Zaka.
Hostia, qué leída, por parte de Zaka, saber que hay un superviviente, la ha pillado en bragas, literalmente.
As far as possible,
No sé si eso se dice en Latinoamérica, lo de pillarte en bragas, básicamente es pillarte en un mal momento.
increasing the distance, making sure he's
Hay dichos que tanto de allí, que aquí no se escuchan aquí, dichos de aquí que no se escuchan allí.
wasting as much time as possible, that they are still standing here. Unfortunately, now Eruption is kicking in on top.
Ya está, obviamente se rinde, pero ya no puedo hacer nada. Hostia, pues muy buena partida de Zeka, sinceramente. Vamos a ver el tema de las perks. Sigue tratando de morirse. Vale, ahí está. Y nada, sprint éxito aplastante, por lo que tienen agilidad y cae equilibrada. Está bien, obviamente fajador no va a ser la noche de este killer, no tiene ningún sentido llevar fajador literalmente. Pero creo que la pérdida del 3% no se permitiría, me imagino. Pues si no, yo hoy hubiese llevado esa contra este killer. Es la más fuerte, a ver, obviamente. Vale, pues vamos a la siguiente partidita, 2:43:06. Si no hablo alto es por, ya sabes, para que Celia no me destruya en trocitos. Así que nada, va match ahora con el Ghoul. Va con intervención corrupta, la ha cambiado por Bim Bam Boom, la ha cambiado. Es también un buen cambio.
They are
Mismos otros,
out
obviamente.
of reach of tiles, or in the immediate vicinity of tiles. But yeah, we are now back into the next round. Oh, hello, that's the only fight we need. Your guy already said Mads will be playing killer against.
Bueno, ya veis aquí a Zaka, Iván y Marcos. Se me había olvidado antes, se me había olvidado Marcos. Perdóname, Marcos, si ves el vídeo, pues eso. Y Sen, que no lo conozco. No sé qué tal juega, pero bueno, es que Zaka y Iván son dioses, literalmente. Marcos juega súper bien. Y este chico, no sé si es español, pero no lo conozco. Si alguien le conoce y lo pone en los comentarios, pues que lo ponga.
The likes of the NOKRON survivors. We've got Zaka, Ivan, Shen, and Marcos. I'm pretty sure Marcos is also more
Y es un equipo nuevo de ellos. El capitán me imagino que será Zaka, casi seguro.
recent addition closer to the start
Muy bien aquí Sen, que pilla distancia, perfecto.
of the tourney. So I'm happy he's made it in because I was really missing him when I didn't see him signed up at first. I'm glad
Aquí se ve de 1 metro hacia la derecha, bueno, medio metro. Está
he's here now. And Shen, our previous Severance survivor, gets our first chase here against Mads Ghoul. And
Yo aquí es cierto que hizo un buen full W, pero claro, lo haces a doble ventana, que es bastante inseguro. Tenía un palet anterior que podría haber aprovechado y luego irte a la doble ventana como último recurso. Aquí creo que podría haber hecho mejor.
goes down very quickly in the corner, but dies in the corner, so it's gonna take a bit until he gets closer to a tile. And also, this time we're seeing that corrupt intervention dire. Instead of pop, I think.
Corrupt intervention now turning into an empty spot. We had 49
Flagrante bien usado.
seconds. First try was 47 seconds. So Mats is already 2 seconds behind. He might need to speed up this game here a little bit. But there we can see JINX is indeed able to step up to Zaka's performance. And they might make this a very, very close trial. Only 2 seconds difference in the first chase here. Ivan going back straight onto the generator here. Doesn't want to allow two.
La parte buena de esto es que si haces 3 motores ganas automáticamente, aunque luego mueran todos, así que pueden dejar a Sen venir en el gancho, no pasa nada, que sacan 3 motores ganan
Too
partido.
much of a regression, 50% over here for Marcus at the shack. So survivors are trying to bring in the wonderful onto Ivan here, pushing him away from the generator. We also see your Thanatophobia now that you asked for, so
Mine.
strategy should be getting as many
Buen por los demás.
injuries as possible here in order to really get the slowdown in. But
Una pena, por los demás te da un poquito la basura porque justo, nada, 3 segundos después ha salido herido. Para mí eso por los demás, a ver, sí que te puede salvar de que justo el Ghoul caiga al lado tuyo y tú estés herido y te envías solo muy rápido, pero te puede ir demasiado fácil, la verdad.
that shouldn't be too much of a problem. That is now Shen finding himself potentially in the tunnel
Camino muy arriesgado, para mí eso va al pozo.
out. So let's see if that's going to be.
Aquí se ha ido por un camino muy muy largo. Debe buscar un palet seguro.
The chance that's now going to be the down right here after the vault into the main building. Very unfortunate for our survivor team.
Yeah, that Fanatophobia, I'm glad they bought the...
De momento Sen, 2 cuelgues, pero no utiliza pared. O sea, parece no, pero joder, Sen, loquete, usa pared, que si no, no pagas poder aguantar.
the last breath
Que es un Ghoul,
of
¿sabes?
the chapter with the nurse DLC beforehand, unlike a certain someone who forgot to buy a DLC for the 1v1 tournament. But yeah, Mads is getting his early pressure. We are at 4 gens remaining, so if he manages to eliminate Shen's, I think his name is actually Sken even, somewhat soon, then we could be looking at a tie here.
Es que es muy rápido este killer, es muy hijo de puta el killer este.
Or even a win now, because Mats is putting in serious business. We've got Zaka and Marcus roaming the map somewhere. Zaka's still injured, so that would be a quick down if Mats manages to land a decent slide with his Kagune leap. And we do continue the next chase.
Muy bien aquí Sen, ya empieza a protegerse rápido. Bien hecho.
And Shaq also just Credos that immediately, doesn't want to risk it whatsoever. Breaks it quickly and only has the hill in the corner now, so unless we're
Buena queda equilibrada.
seeing a cheeky balanced landing, which we do. Sken would have perished in that corner. He is the one that Mads is currently tunneling out, so it would be very dangerous for our survivor team if he was eliminated. Doesn't get the lead past him, so he will be able to get that pallet. Body block doesn't reach. And the tie is reached if
Muy bien aquí Sen, perfecto.
Mads manages to 4K now. Sken manages to avoid another
Hostia, qué bien jugado aquí por parte de Sen, brutal.
lunge, wins the 50, and this is exactly what I said earlier. The only way this killer could lose is
Hostia, aquí el killer está poniendo nervioso,
when he overcommits and he makes mechanical
La está liando parda justo aquí. Aquí Sen está jugando como un dios, literal.
makes false mechanical decisions, and he's losing 50 after 50 after 50. Wow, Sken's holding his team in the game.
Ha ganado muchos, como dice el caster, muchos 50-50. Eso es, vamos, brillante.
Single-handedly, and I think with how long that chase just took, we're looking at that 3rd generator popping very soon. I don't think Mads has enough time here, especially also because he doesn't get pain rest from him.
Ya está, con un motor más, ganan la partida.
And my
Así que Sen, muy mala primera chase, muy mala segunda chase, para tercera chase, ¡mua! Brillante. Acaba de ganar la partida con esta tercera chase.
question or my prediction will soon be answered. Oh yeah, we're at 90.
Si os fijáis, están creo que 2 mentes reparando juntos, sí, Iván y Marcos, efectivamente, y Zaka por su cuenta reparando otro, por si acaso cancelar el killer de alguna manera este motor. Zaka ya está haciendo la victoria por su lado.
Doubling too.
Yeah, just for the protocol real quick, we
Así que esto es un jaque mate para el killer, obviamente.
got alerted by NOKRON survivors that they are on high ping because we're playing on the Indian service right now, which is not allowed for Season X. The players that would connect to Indian service need to exit lag to Frankfurt.
Recordar que aquí, aunque tú ya hayas ganado, que a estas alturas NOKRON ya ha ganado, van a intentar jugar su mejor partida porque imaginaos que cuando jueguen todos los partidos están empatados a puntos. Y a lo mejor un equipo ha hecho más motores que otro. Pues eso reina, ¿sabes? Para llevarte el campeonato o pasar a la final.
But we have allowed the play out here for now because they were
Vale, se va a hit, pero se protege. No está mal.
close to the win condition, and luckily we do not need to make a restart decision about this trial.
Y JINX igual, aunque ya haya perdido la partida, va a luchar por matar a los 4, aunque le hagan un motor más.
Because NOKRON is just taking it successfully, so the first set point is falling onto them here. Very well done. I feel like JINX really had the chance. You pointed it out, Mathis. There was a good chance to even turn this into a win. It was just very unfortunate. The Survivor team seemed to stay at this famous step ahead. They were using the time very efficiently. In the previous trial, we had some moments where the Survivors
Si os fijáis, curan a Iván porque uno tiene que venir sano al descuelgue y Zaka obviamente no se va a curar porque no merece nada la pena.
were trying
Zaka se va a ir a su motor al que estaba reparando.
to reposition, and that costed a lot of time. Rotating to the next generator away from the killer, moving over here towards this unhook that they were given by Zaka. And this is what NOKRON didn't have to do, so they could stay way easier on the generators for much longer time, and this ultimately allowed them now to turn it into a win for themselves. We're gonna see if NOKRON is going to set a dominant sign here at the beginning of this match, if they are going going to take some outs from this trial. That would be really crazy, I feel like, if we are seeing survivors walking out of the door in the Ghoul set. But
Este palet era el que Sen tenía en la primera persecución, antes de entrar a la doble ventana, aquí tenía el palet. Pues fijáis, Sen no lo ha utilizado y ahora Marcos lo tiene.
right now, I would
Así que no está
even say that could happen.
Do you think that's ever going to happen, really? I mean, we are still in the 3v1 here, so it's going to be super difficult. Mats doesn't have everybody injured at the moment, and I don't think he's in his enraged mode. I don't even know the term for that. Unfortunately, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Muy bien aquí Marcos, no está comando los 20.
Yeah, the TL shouldn't take that long. You know, honestly, I'm starting to believe that a TL might be one of the strongest tells against
Muy buen 50 ahí.
this killer, because he excels on palace and he excels at long tiles. And a TL is just 2 volts that are very, very
Muy buen medium aparte de
short. And we've seen now Sken and
Con el Blue Last a todo.
Whoa, nasty hit. Sken and Marcus have been able to waste so much time on this tile. That
Tus hits con la deducción está viendo Laura, así que va a ir de uno.
might be the answer as to how counter this killer the most efficiently. I find it really funny also that how, you know, I've made these parallels to Nurse already, or these comparisons, and people are kind of playing. That was, how did he hug that so tightly? That was very interesting, super well executed. People are also double backing on that initial Kagune leap because, again, that first hit, that first one is so unique because you end up sliding once you finish it.
Muy bien aquí Zaka, pillando el palet con la estructura del sac.
And people have started double backing into it, like similar to a Nurse blink.
Ya sabéis que un buen superviviente no se queda en una estructura, sino que va de una u otra e intenta coordinarse.
So I find that super funny how this killer sort of compares to a lot of other killers, but it's still so unique. Unlike Dracula, where people like to
Brutal, Zaka está jugando de los
draw
el petardo perfecto para saltarle palet y confundir.
comparisons directly, that the ability is basically just this other ability, but changed. This killer takes inspiration from many other killers, but makes them super unique. Oh, they actually popped the 4th gen too. Wow, I didn't expect that.
Y se va abajo para ganar el máximo tiempo posible.
Okay, Dai, your prediction might have been right.
My optimistic approach to Team NOKRON may not
Y sobre todo para el gancho flagelante. No quiere que use gancho flagelante.
be
Así que el lugar más seguro, pues Sota.
may not be underestimated. It shouldn't happen, but Zaka also doing a phenomenal job here, in my opinion, going down into the
No sé si este gancho será flagelante.
basement, wasting as much time as possible. Matt's even picking him back up towards.
Muy bien, aquí os fijáis. Dicen, vete al sótano que le hacemos el motor. Perfecto, aquí por el equipo de NOKRON.
That is actually the final generator,
I don't
and that
believe
leaves Ivan and Marcos as the final standing survivors. One of them might get into chase now. The other one can then rotate around, saving Zaka, so they constantly have their 2 survivors in the trial. It's all dependent on this chase here. If this one is ending too quickly, then the Ghoul has the chance to move back towards the hook. I think he found Ivan, if I'm not mistaken. No, he just casually went back towards the hook and finds Ivan
Buen hit aquí.
right there, as we are going to have the unhook. But the chance is realistic, ladies and gentlemen. We may see some outs against the Ghoul, and that wouldn't only be very impressive considering we are playing this killer here. It would also be impressive in terms of setting a sign after set number 1. This was NOKRON
No llegas.
coming in, picking
Aquí está jugando que te caes.
the Ghoul, delivering the Ghoul, 4k3 against an out. That is just very clear a sign that they want to take the win overall here.
Yeah, that is crazy. We have to take into consideration it was NOKRON's pick, so they are expected to come into
Esto estará en otra portal seguramente ya.
this set with a bit more momentum. We will be seeing JINX's pick in the upcoming set, which is also Dracula, which I find a bit interesting. I don't remember.
Pues muy bien, 7 cuelgues para JINX y no creo que consiguió 12 cuelgues. Perfecto, vamos a ver las perks. Ahí están. Calle equilibrada, sprint con la que se llama conciencia, me parece. Es un muy buen combo estos dos. Este doble combo también está muy bien para siempre tener tótems para curarte, saber dónde están y limpiarlos más rápido. Muy buen conjunto este. Éxito aplastante y la agilidad buenísima. Muy bien, muy bien. Vale, pues primera partida para NOKRON. Vamos para la siguiente. Creo que era Dracula, si no recuerdo mal.
any good, but we managed to load in. Everyone is happy that they didn't.
Match con Dracula. Ya es que el lápiz Lulí lo que hace es que cuando vas a un murciélago a una ventana le metes el desconcierto. Básicamente, 4 pipas ganadores, porque este killer ya es para mí, vamos, cercano a Tier S, o Tier S, mejor dicho Tier S en Chase. Así que son perder para motores.
Take a black card as they actually cost some money.
Bueno, y desconcierto nada, ¿no?
Season 10. So yeah, Matt is now going to be against Zaka, Ivan, Marcos, and Zynox. Zynox, as we mentioned previously, the captain basic.
Sí, con Ghoul se hizo. Vamos, tuvo 6 cuelgues, 4K. Con Dracula es más fácil hacerse 4K, ¿vale? Porque Dracula es un kilo más fuerte que Ghoul.
Of Team Celestial that has then merged together with Ivan and Zaka into NOKRON here. And Marcos, the player you missed, Mathis, is already taking an injury here.
That makes me sad. Oh, but that was a no, kidding. I find that a ridiculously early find here by Mats. He's already zoning Marcos away from that. That's beautiful. Oh, he body blocked him.
Perfecto. Aquí match, perfecto. Coge el fuego, aguanta. Cuando llegas al palet, te hago body block, porque obviamente vas a intentar esquivarme. Quito el fuego y te meto un M1. Perfecto, juego por más.
As well, to make sure he definitely doesn't miss, and he just goes for the M1 right after. Similar
sí que lo conozco, juega súper bien. Hace sí que lo conozco.
to, you know, like, I didn't think I'd be making this case for Dracula today, but I guess he's also okay, if Ghoul is the new Wraith, then Dracula is the new Ghoul, because I've never seen anyone body block that persistently, or that committed so much to the body block there, as I've seen just now with Matt. Absolutely making sure that he doesn't miss those fire pillars and gets a safe M1 there. Because I'm gonna hope that Matt wouldn't get spun by Marcos there. But yeah, Wretched Shot, we're seeing that how strong this map can be. Hello, that's interesting.
Aquí Zaka creo que podría utilizar el palet e intentar usar la estructura, pero no sé si ha venido hacia la esquina para recibir el M1. Quizá también es por una call del equipo, también puede ser.
How interesting this map can be, because once you're not on a tile any longer, it's really empty. I also find that hit tank by Zaka, or that decision making, super interesting. He
Aquí detrás hay un brilliante.
went edge map, doesn't want to play the tile, so I guess the reasoning behind that was if he planned to do it the way I expected, is that he wants to just drag Mats to the corner as well. So the bad TP would take a bit longer if he wanted to come back for the tunnel, because then he'd be in the corner, obviously. But yeah, we see Marcos unhooked, and Mats is very close to the unhook regardless, because the unhook took a bit longer than Zaka expected there. Gets the stun at least mid-bat. And now, yeah, it's again how empty this map is. It's really difficult once you've exhausted the tile. It's really, wow.
Ahí es muy difícil liarse a Dracula, muy difícil un pale como estos.
Really difficult, and I'm starting to understand now why JINX picked this killer dire. You know, I
No hay golpe decisivo de Marcos.
didn't remember if they've ever played this killer, but now Mads is super confident.
Yeah, they have a very good reason here, and it's good to see that it works out. We have seen in the first matchup of today that you sometimes pick up a killer and it absolutely doesn't work out as you are wanting to. Oracle had 2 3-stage games on the killer
Nadie reparando, muy importante.
list they have selected, so it's good to see that Mats is feeling a little bit more comfortable with the killer here. Good start for the Dark Lord. We talked about it a little bit. Has the mobility to recover a little bit and put some pressure on the survivors. You
Había la que detrás de la roca.
still need to have a good chunk of mechanical gameplay and good mind games, and this is absolutely what Mats delivers so far. I would also expect him to stay around the hook here. You have the 3v1 scenario basically at hand, especially if you find Ivan,
Poco FP que iba a ser unos 3 en rescatar a Marcos, la verdad.
who is just lurking around for the unhook here.
Oh,
That's
no
going to
second
turn
person.
out pretty punishing.
quieren rescatarle, pero cuando le quede muy poquita sangre, ¿sabéis? Para intentar aguantar la partida más para los supervivientes.
For Team NOKRON, no second person.
Porque se le rescatan ya, o sea, Iván puede haber rescatado a Marcos perfectamente, puede haber rescatado, pero si le rescata ya, le mete un túnel muy gratis y no avanza suficiente los motores, ¿sabéis?
Around indeed, so the double save was not planned, meaning Zaka or Zynox now have to rotate from cross map, which is first taking a significant amount of time, and second, it is also going to be only last second and therefore very likely resulting in a trade here. Ivan is going to receive the reset that tells Matt
No da tiempo, creo que no da tiempo.
that in case someone is coming for the unhook, no one is going to be available for the generator.
Pues esto es putada muy grande, ¿vale? Muy grande dejar morir a Marcos con 4 motores contra un tier S. Estos realmente son 4K, ¿vale? A ver cuántos motores les saca.
And it seems like NOKRON opts to, go for the elimination here.
Vamos, si no es 4K es porque al que le salió el internet, básicamente.
I also need to correct myself real quick. We did see JINX play Dark Lord in the previous tournament as well. The reason why I didn't remember it is, I should have remembered it actually, is because that was the game when Mad's PC crashed and they would have won that set.
Oh, yeah.
But because that happened, they were eliminated. So I'm super glad that Mad stuck to the killer, wasn't demotivated by it, and yeah, a kill on 4 gens on Ratchet Shop. That speaks for itself.
Pretty much.
Muy bien aquí Mats, le cierra la ventana y va por detrás, pues sabe que aquí Zinus va a volver a sacar como sea.
Yeah, four generators still standing and you already have the elimination. It's not really what you want to see on a big map like this. We talked about the
Aquí error de Mats.
potential. You can drag the killer towards the edges.
Qué putada que Zinus se saltó por la ventana, pues ya te voy a pillar la distancia.
You can really waste some time, or you can double vault into the shack window and just take an inch.
Esto es muy importante, ¿vale? Después de cada hit, como cuando jueguéis Dracula, pillaros el murciélago, ¿vale? Porque así el sprint que tiene un superviviente al recibir la hostia lo alcancéis lo más rápido posible. O sea, el murciélago usarlo mucho en persecución.
Here, Zynox, that is a strategy as well, but maybe not the best one if you want to recover from the elimination that you just found. Back to the shack, second try basically. Hopefully this one is going to work out a little bit better. Shack pallet now leaving the trial. That's going to be beneficial for the killer later on. Bad form, going to be a little bit too early coming out of it though. Zynox trying to bring us edge map
Muy buen Zinus, aprovechando esa estructura para meterse y luego ir full doble para ganar segundos. Perfecto.
again, wasting as much time as possible, successfully doing so because he is playing a little bit of a cheeky mind game here, and that's just going to be Mats following up in the wolf form here. Next hook stage coming in, but Zaka and Ivan, they have a difficult task at hand. I feel like NOKRON needs to start calculating only with generators.
Muy bien, motorcito.
And they're starting to play this like it's spirit on
Y ha dañado generador, o sea que hay otro generador.
Because yard really, with Zaka and Zynox now being the 2 players that just keep running edge map and taking hits there. Because they understand how large this map is. Now I want to say Dracula has the upper hand when it comes to mobility, because again the bat allows you to go cross map. A phase even with double duration doesn't allow you to do that. So yeah, they want... I love that Champions of Light so much. Oh, well... Oh, the patience there. I really didn't expect Mads would unleash that, because normally you would wait either for the item to disappear.
Aquí Zaka, el primer hit ha sido demasiado rápido, demasiado aquí con el lobo, tal, saque sin pared, es bastante mala estructura contra un Dracula. Estás bastante jodido y has que va el juego de puto milagro, literalmente.
Or just to actually see the Volt animation start there. But that was a bit overzealous by Mads there, and that caused the chase to take.
Vale, tiene cargada ya la pérdida de segundo aliento. Eso quiere decir que cuando la que salga del gancho se va a curar sola, ¿vale? En 20 segundos, si no recuerdo mal.
Good 7-8 seconds longer than it should have, because Zaka realistically should have gone down there on that window. But yeah, nice dodge there. Wasn't able to avoid the wolf before that. You see a reset on Ivan and Zynox. And the basin hook too, so it's gonna be pretty difficult to get out of the situation, really. Or it's not so difficult to get out of the situation, but it's going to be difficult to get back into the situation of hammering gens, because I don't think they have any pressure right now. Matt still has got 3 active generator regression perks. Up intervention obviously gone since Marcos was found so early on. Also need to point out that down happened as fast as the Ghoul downs in the previous game, so that is also not something you would expect with Dracula, because I think or Toby's probably going to correct me on that very soon. What I remember, at least from the previous tournaments, is that most of these early first downs on Dracula occurred at least after the 1 minute mark. So seeing a 45 seconds here on par with Ghoul, pretty impressive. But again, yeah, Marcus was found very early on in a very open field, and now Mads is doing one of my favorite strategies in this game, is where you basically just hold these. I want to say, are you standing in the middle of a sector where, or a section of the map where you can look down from your position all the way
Qué buenos petardos par de Iván, qué locura. Petardos perfectos, literalmente.
Oh, that was a beautiful firecracker by Ivan there. Where you can look all the way down to edge map, so there's no spot that any survivor can sneak past, and you have a clear line of sight on all the way down to edge map. And he was just doing that on Shaq, where he would be able to lock down basically this area of all 3 generators that he wants to play for the end game, and that basement hook. So realistically, no one can get past without Matt seeing him. But here we see Matt's overcommitting to Ivan here, trying to find, or at least get a hit on him, and that gave our survivors a window of opportunity, and Zarko will be rescued from the basement. Also, yeah, the average was slightly above 1 minute, as Tobias just confirmed. And we see Zaka going down immediately after being rescued. Doesn't make it anywhere, doesn't have the distance or the time to reach any of these windows. And Mats now opts to hook him very central in the map.
Hostia, ese motor es muy importante, 4 motores contra Dracula, siendo 3 supervivientes contra 4 motores.
That's the exchange here. Elimination coming in for generator number 4. Very important what you pointed out there. We cannot emphasize on this enough, right? Do not underestimate the early game. A lot of people are wasting time in the early game.
Muy buena agilidad.
Not our comp players, but a lot of people out there.
Yeah, it's me.
You really underestimate the.
Qué bonito se mueve Iván, tío. Son microgiros, pero es que eso molesta que te cagas aquí.
First 2 minutes of the game, when you have a quick down against you, when you are not setting up on the correct generators at the beginning, you are going to have a disadvantage for the rest of the trial.
Muy bien, aquí se ven las estructuras para estar un poquito más seguros.
And if the killer is not giving
Vamos, no creo que aguante el motor, lo dudo muchísimo.
you the chance to recover from that, like Mads is doing here, we can see that it can actually lead all the way towards a 4K. Ivan has the
Aquí le falta un poquito girar luego.
responsibility now. JINX is on a generator in the distance, at least was. Now,
Si os fijáis cómo ha aprovechado aquí Iván esta estructura para decir que luego me ven por derecha, yo me ven por izquierda, que luego me ven por izquierda, yo me ven por derecha, para tener la ventana. O sea, parece una estructura que lo utiliza por la ventana, o sea, brutal aquí.
now he's jumping back on it. If Ivan is running out of his mind, we might see the final generator coming out, but we would need to have
Qué pena, muchos no sabríamos cómo es el mago.
a run for more than 50 seconds, and that is to accept his fate here. Last chance. Pulling away from the generator as well, and that's going to be the bat form, and JINX is just going to accept his fate here. Last chance. There is no heal coming through as well.
Podría haber intentado el tema de la trampilla y tal, pero bueno, no sé. Ha dicho, bueno, intenta curar a Iván y le ha pillado con las manos en la masa. Pues nada, perfecto. Pues muy buena partida. Ha jugado una partida a los suplentes de NOKRON, sinceramente. Quitando que eso, que Tenio está muerto ahí en el segundo cuelgue de manera bastante unlucky, pero quitando eso han jugado muy bien los otros 3 supervivientes. Vale, vamos a la siguiente partidita. Para. Un poquito. Voy por aquí.
One hell of a DBD Battlefield.
Acá. Vamos ahí con misma build y mismo set.
Coming out instantly with the wolf form here.
Rara vez cambian build y addon, o sea, a lo mejor una perk, pero los addons que siempre son iguales pues son los más fuertes que se llevan.
Trying to scout and sniff the first survivor. JINX obviously knows how quick that went in the previous trial, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're even playing a little bit more careful or a little bit more
Le ha pillado con el carrito de helado a Moon aquí, brutal.
hiding.
Leyendo que justo en esa hora de la ventana estaba el super.
Just as fast as in the previous trial, Moon is taking the injury here, Mathis. The potential is there.
That was so clean. Oh!
Recibe stun aquí, Zaka, podría no haberse llevado perfectamente.
He'll get a second pallet stun at least, but that looked so clean, didn't it? That insta-TP
Como se la está follando aquí en la ventana del saque.
the wolf into the immediate hit, and I don't think he makes it anywhere.
Violada. O sea, muy violada, literalmente.
Crouches for some
Bueno, violado, creo que es un chico, ¿vale?
reason.
Yo digo violada porque es un Nancy Williams.
But yeah, I feel like if he had dodged to the left, there may have been a
Si fuese ahí, se hubiese dicho violado.
slight chance, but the hitbox of the wolf is quite large.
Aunque creo que esa palabra en YouTube no gusta, sinceramente, pero bueno, lo que es.
And again, that's a very early basin hook. The exact same thing oh no, not the exact same thing we saw in the previous game, but earlier in the other set. Because we also saw
Pues mi primer vuelo es súper rápido, brutal.
Dracula get that early down. And then out of everybody, it is also Moon, the person that was sniped by Wee Jason's Hillbilly in the last tournament of across map at the start of the game. Sorry to pour salt into the wound, but it's a funny fact to point out. That is a lot of pressure very early on, and that pop goes the Weasel, plus that eruption on that generator now. The insta-save, however, that's
Un save muy rápido por los demás, perfecto aquí por parte del equipo de JINX.
very admirable, because that was practically perfect timing into the for the people. And they're also currently what's it called? Strategically denying that pain resonance by going down basement. Very smart.
Vale, aquí se mete, ¿ha fallado el segundo golpe? Sí, pero ha pillado el lado bueno del pared. Lo malo que ahora tiene esa
Decision. But yeah, obviously, no. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time, and Moon will return to his original palette
Qué pena ese hit.
that he was on at the start, but
Yo ahí hubiese aguantado un poquito, la llevo hacia el pared y la giro en el pared. Yo ahí creo que ha sido mejor decisión de Zaka.
thankfully makes it to Tal this time. 44 seconds. 1 second faster by Zarka here even. That means Dracula's better than Ghoul now.
Le salta la ventana muy bien aquí, Moon está...
Oh, that ball was...
Antes se la ha intentado, mejor como son, pero ahora Moon está haciendo muy bien.
Yeah, Dracula is working up
Aquí cada...
his way to S tier here. Hello, Moon. That's going to be a quick injury. Unfortunate for Team JINX, but the stun is coming out. That was an important one, making sure that we are not having to...
Claro, aquí Zaka ha pecado, tienes que proteger el lado del pared. Por allí por la izquierda no va a ir porque sabe que tiene que cerrar las ventanas. Quédate en el lado del pared.
Too much pressure
Aquí Zaka podría haber hecho
on
más.
the side of Zarka here. Important will now be...
Ya sabéis que el M1 del lobo es más corto de lo normal, ¿vale? No es como un M1 normal de un kilo.
Yes, great. Almost. What? That should have almost been a hit there. But important is, as much as JINX is playing and protecting each other here and running around each other to really take
Está tardando mucho en turnar, ¿eh? Está tardando bastante.
care of one another, they need to remember that they're generators to repair. Sometimes we're seeing that teams are very good in the team play, very good
Que bien está jugando Moon, ¿eh?
in the protection of one another, and then they forget about the objective. So it's good to see that the second one is already prepared there. Moon taking
Muy bien Moon, ¿eh? Muy bien.
the down right here, but I still
Moon está demostrando mucho nivel, ¿eh?
think JINX is in a lot of control here.
That was also
Dos motores.
really smart time to leave that Moon did there. Because we saw Zarka commit to that fire pillar that he wanted to basically
Va a retrasar un poquito más ese motor.
hit him around the corner. Because again, the hitboxes are a bit interesting on those abilities, especially when the ping isn't zero, which it never is. But Moon also leaves the tell the moment he transforms, takes advantage of that microscopically small window where basically Zarka isn't able to move at top speed. So that was really smart and almost was able to avoid the second dash there, but gets hit through the corner of that rubbish pillar, or the scrap pillar rather. And yeah, they are at least 2 generators in, but Zarka is holding these gens very effectively. At least it's undeniably a better early game than what we saw last time though.
Qué bueno ese hit, madre mía, no me lo esperaba, ¿eh?
And we're
love those hits
seeing
so
even
much.
some juice being taken here now with the stuns and the double vaults. Very, very well done. They need
Nah, eso no iba a funcionar ni de coña. Zaka.
to keep an eye out
Deja fumar por...
for
thinks he's
Moon
demoed.
there. It would be sad if we're losing this survivor too early, but same strategy as in the previous trial. Zarka just using the fact that we have a lot of injuries.
Buah, qué pedazo de este fuego.
That
that's-
is leaving Dark as the only one who can come around. Hellfire not going to
Oh my
land.
god!
Qué pena. Nada. Una décima de segundo, ¿eh? Moon, nada. 3 décimas de segundo.
It's going to be actually the trade coming in.
Este era muy importante. que hubiese muerto Moon en el cuelgue. Es como la anterior partida, que ha muerto, creo que era... ¿quién fue el que murió en el primer cuelgue? ¿El segundo? Sí, en el segundo cuelgue.
Moon is
No me acuerdo.
now free to walk away. Dark happily taking the trade here. Zaka will now
Creo que es Aerox.
be busy with the tunnel out, but being busy with the tunnel out means that one survivor can pick up and the other one can freely work on a generator.
Aquí dice que a los nervios.
So still working out for JINX. Mind game not going to work out for Zaka here. JINX in the advantage position. Zaka again finding himself in the
Hostia, qué fallo. Este es un fallo gordo.
next mind game. Hellfire again not finding the target. Mathis, JINX is becoming a little bit too dangerous here.
And I really hope they profit from it as well, because those two moments here, they were so clutch. Like, Moon able to...
Muy bien, Zaka, Moon, brutal.
Oh, unlucky. Moon able to avoid the fire pillar that bought them another like 10-15 seconds, and without they wouldn't have been able to reset just now. And Dark getting that unhook, able to avoid the fire pillars, then rush past, get past
Hay un suplente muy cerca de este motor agachado escondido.
Zaka's body in game, and it gets the unhook there too. Because again, if he had got the fire pillar, that would have been a two tap. So you don't get around that because the recovery is so much faster. But the gens are looking rather grim, and honestly, I don't think they'll even be able to get. They'd be able to get the win here. Best case scenario for the Survivors right now would be the tie, unless again we see a very clutch chase, which I really don't want to count JINX out from. But right now, I must admit, they are playing this better than NOKRON did in the previous trial on the Survivor side.
They did, yeah. I just feel like, unfortunately, the pressure on the generators was not as high and the efficiency was not as high
Muy bien, cambio de forma de lobo, Zaka. Para aprovechar el movimiento de las bolitas blancas.
as it would have been needed. They always opened up small windows for themselves with the protection, with the great chases, but unfortunately they were not able to transfer that one by one into the generators. Here, Mats with a huge responsibility.
Muy bien aquí Mats alejándose del loop para que no dé con el fuego, perfecto.
Needs to be a longer chase. That's going to be a very nice circle away from the pallet in order to get out of reach.
Muy bien jugado con el lobo en el tema de las bolitas blancas.
So Zaka has to come over here, but little Wolfie is going to shut it down. Eruption coming in the distance, and now we even see the slug, because Zaka realizes if he ends it right here, Mathis, they would even
Sofía le mete sprint y otro de murciélago.
be the win.
Oh, Dyer, they didn't call out the eruption. I feel like that's messed over quite a lot there, but Mad's chase was impeccable in that corner there. Again, I really like how our survivors of Team JINX are taking advantage of those and
Muy bien aquí Zaka.
of those transition animations. Whenever Zaka decides to swap forms, they always take that
Como se queda en la ventana esperando para ver por dónde va.
opportunity to skip the tile, and that's exactly also what Mads did there in the corner, trying to get into the corner to waste just a little bit more time. And right now there is, forcing the
Aguantar un poquito más de tiempo y perder.
grab. There is no eruption on that generator. They get the full heal even. I was really going to say that most likely just getting that pickup and then immediately doubling on that generator. But seemingly it is not as far as I was hoping for, and now Zaka also gets that pop goes the weasel on that generator, so a lot of progress, or even all progress,
No sé por qué me da que va a ser empate, chicos.
because that's only 2 pistons pumping, will be nullified
Porque se hacen un motor más y luego mueren todos y empate.
right here. Of course, those 20% by pop goes is conditional, so it's not just a flat 20%, it's 20% of the current progress on that generator. But that is still going to be quite a number here. Oh.
Qué buen hit, parece no ver este arbolito, hostia, es puñetero.
Look at that hitbox. He stood behind the tree and it still connects some.
Es que eso del murciélago, tío, que tú le sacas distancia y te alcanza la distancia en apenas unos pocos segundos, me parece brutal.
Well, Zaka's also opting to go for the tunnel out here. He wants to enforce a 2v1 even to really hit the nail in the coffin. And it seems to be successful. It's about that fire.
Qué bien la coleta aguantando aquí en este agujerito brutal.
Pillar again.
Esta gente juega muy bien, todos ellos, o sea, es que son unos bestias.
Oh, beautiful dodge by Dark here. Once more, that's 2 times the charm now that they've been able to narrowly avoid it. And Zaka is also forced to leave this chase. I really don't think he wanted to. And yeah, we have Mads. He's most likely going to stay on this pallet even after getting hit, so he gets his life off, and then only maybe, or sometimes Zaka also just doesn't care and just...
Muy bien aquí leído por sacar la agilidad de match.
Will just swing straight through the tiles, and it takes so many people off guard. I speak from personal experience, is all I'm gonna add to that. But yeah, Mads gets the life.
Toda la estancia que ha ganado con agilidad y una ventana fuerte, mirar, ¿para qué sirve? Para nada.
It's still an unexpected hit here. At least he got the double
Es lo que tiene Murciélago, estaba roto.
sprint burst off that injury and the life. Goes down the pallet
Gancho para excelente de match.
now, but no survivor anywhere nearby, and also no one working on generators. I feel like Zaka might actually stop this out.
Yeah, this is the problem. We have seen it in the Ghoul set, it made the difference. And unfortunately, it does make the
Les ha leído, están en sac.
difference here again. They are unfortunately not able to get these, and you don't get a lot of time from a Zaka, right? Zaka is not going out and saying, here, take 5 minutes to your hand.
Hostia, pues pensé que les había encontrado.
Distribute it like you want to. You are only getting seconds, and you need to be
Hostia, no les he encontrado de puto milagro, estaban aquí.
on point
Pero el juego anda falló en el Zaka,
when you're
Bueno, lo estoy jugando muy bien, pero en el juego anda falló.
talking about this. Dark now being found, luckily not getting injured yet, so there is the chance for another rescue of Mads. There is the chance to drag
Se lo toma por culo. Quiere ir a la ventana del camión ese.
3 survivors back onto the generators here on the side of JINX, but
Quiere ir a esta ventana y se ha ido a la otra. En F.
the chances are more and more fading away here. We basically need a couple of very game-changing chases now against Zaka, and so far he doesn't allow that. So I think
Casi funciona.
JINX needs
Not this
to
time.
slowly accept that a tie would actually be
Están haciendo un motor porque si no hacen el motor pierden, básicamente.
the best case scenario here.
Yo os digo, anda fallón con el fuego. Con el fuego anda fallón.
Yeah, I have to. Oh. Guess I also have to take back what I said before. Apparently 4K2 and 4K1 is just the average on Dracula now. Maybe I underestimated the map here. It might be more in favor for Dracula than in Survivor. And I was just waffling
Match a segundo cuelga.
waffling crap earlier. But yeah, Dark is trying to get some more pressure on this, but I feel like, yeah, Zaka is full aware and he's going to interrupt this generator now. Dark walking away from the generator, not giving Zaka any info, since similar to how Spirit operates, you can only see the scratch marks. But that was very smart here, and I feel like he didn't even move far away from that generator, and he's straight back on it. So the generator should be at about 60% now, and it depends on these chases.
Este panel está haciendo mucho daño a Zaka.
They cannot give Zaka a reason to get
Y Dark le va a hacer un motor.
the down and interrupt the gen. They have to make him second guess and go consider leaving the chase in favor for the generator, which is exactly what they do now, to buy a bit more time overall. Of course, the generator will be interrupted, but if the down comes through and he gets to interrupt the generator in time, then that's a 2v1 and a generator that's not progressing anymore. So I'm glad they're at least able to buy a bit more time in that regard. I'm not sure, however, if this generator is going anywhere.
JINX! The question is, did they jinx it themselves, or is it
Está leyendo muy bien los 50-50 Zaka.
just Zaka coming out here? There was definitely going to be a very dark time ahead of them with no moon, but the survivors have to say, okay, we're not gonna be mads, but
Y el árbol le reventa.
next trial will be a little bit better. This is why I love JINX as well.
Os digo, con el fuego andará un poco doblado, pero los 50-50 se lo está llevando que te cagas.
Well, you can make wonderful jokes with all of their player names. Dark going down here, being thrown onto the hook. I want to see that fourth generator, Mathis. They deserve it. They are fighting.
Yeah.
They are trying. They are comebacking, if you want to name it like this. I feel like it would be a great
Yo si fuese opulento estaría haciendo el motor más alejado a este. Es el más seguro, al fin y al cabo.
revenue or great reward for them if they can take at least
Había marcas por ahí.
a tie here. But
Man, I love
I
revenue.
don't see it happening anymore. I don't see it happening
Acaban de curar rescatar a Dark.
anymore. Zaka is too strong, and you weren't believing.
Yeah, the thing, yeah, maybe I've jinxed it, but the thing is also, it's, again, we might be impressed by the microcosm that the chase is in these games, but it's still, chases hardly matter when you have strategy, when you have your macro game. The 4v1 is just so much more important. It almost sounds like I'm
Brutal, aquí está con una colina, perfecto.
like no. I'm trying to put this in a way where it doesn't come across too political, but it sounds like
Buenísimo el buff.
I'm talking about like communism, where it's like it's for the greater good. The individual doesn't matter as much. Basically, but that's what 4v1 is really. I didn't offend anyone there, but that's what 4v1 is in the end. It doesn't. The chases don't matter. It's all about the positions that you die in, and it's all about. Oh, they get it. Thankfully. It's all about the 4v1.
Por qué poco, por muy poco, literalmente.
The chases don't matter as much, and that's where we were really impressed by JINX here. But again, the generator progress watch was superior, or was faster at least, on the other for the other team, for NOKRON. So that's in the end where they were stronger. But JINX, because their chases, it seems like because their chases have been so impactful, I love that Champions of Light so much.
Hostia, vaya quitado que acaba de meter, brutal.
You're so fast.
Eso por la caja, ¿sabes? Pero vamos.
But you need no scratch marks. That's essentially what they're using it for. And also, it cuts a bit down on the sounds you make too. Oh, he gets the second hit, the dash there actually gets cut. So K will be able to make
Le ha pasado otra vez lo mismo. Le ha pasado otra vez lo mismo. Ha sido a la otra ventana.
it. But we see Zaka teleport
¿Veis?
past and get stuck. No, I was gonna say basement as well. Catch you now.
Onto this would be football tie, and then we're gonna see in the next two matches, is it going to be a 1-1 and a tie in set number 4? Then we're gonna have a 1-1 overall. Is it turning into a 2-1? Everything is possible now. This also makes it a greater season, because now we are not having entire win
Aquí cerca Andrea lo contó un poquito.
loss scenarios anymore based on one hook stage, but we actually reflect if two teams are playing with the same
Ojo que la partida estaba ganada y mira.
skill against each other and manage to tie. So this is going to go into the books very likely as a tie, meaning we stay as a 1-0 for NOKRON, moving into the next
¿Qué pasó?
Hell
set.
yeah.
And that is our producer.
Vamos, no jodas, esto no lo sabía. ¿Hola? ¿Qué ha pasado? Vamos, no jodas. Buenísimo el Epic.
Being jinxed by, yeah,
Isn't that everybody? Dedicated server not responding. Does that
not
kick everybody?
always. Sometimes it is just the.
Classic behavior, dice uno.
We can only hope now that the teams, they haven't screamed yet.
Wow.
The referees are not screaming yet, so I think the teams are fine. Sometimes happens
Server.
because we are now getting two different.
No jodas. Aquí no sé lo que ha pasado, porque ya creo que no pasa nada directamente a la siguiente partida. Si os fijáis, no hay punto para nadie. Claro, yo esto me rayó. Yo pensé. Esto me rayó, en plan, ¿por qué han jugado 2 partidas y NOKRON tiene un punto y JINX 0? Ostras, esto es raro, Es raro, la verdad. No sé qué pasará con esta partida, porque ya os digo yo que me van a servir todas y no la vuelven a jugar. Pero bueno, vamos a dar para atrás y vimos esta que bien que se viene Plaguita. Nada, Plaguita en Pozo de Asfixia. Aquí lo normal, yo digo que la plaga solo juegue en un lado, o en el lado del sac o en el lado de la mina. Y hacerse fuertes, sobre todo en mid-game, late-game, cuantos motores menos haga y tenga fuentes para coger el poder. Es que este killer sin fuentes es bastante malo. El centro de los sprints están heridos, pero él es un M1 nada más. Pues luego lleva tanatofobia y lleva el lado numerado es para tener 20 segundos más del vómito negro, vamos, el que te tira al suelo, básicamente el que te hiere, y la manzanita amarilla va a tener una fuente más con el poder, o sea, esa que va a tener 2, porque una es de base. Y nada, muy buenos addons y ya ver qué tal va. Taca. No sé qué va a pasar con la partida anterior, la verdad, no lo sé.
But yeah, that's been fixed by now. So yeah, if you haven't got any of
Porque para mí era empate, para mí es un empate manual. El anterior, porque no creo que entre 2 clientes le dices en el motor, encima eran 2 clientes heridos.
those conditional exhaustion perks, then you kind of just boned in a corner if you haven't got sprint burst because sprint burst is banned. But yeah, it's going
Acaba de decir Sprint está baneado contra Plagas.
to be a loss about against suffocation, but
Plagas es un killer débil en competitivo, ¿vale? Que lo sepas.
the classic bottleneck map, I'm sure you would agree.
Bueno, tier medio tirando a débil, ¿vale?
It's either 3 gen, 4 gen, 5 gen on one side or the other, and then you kind of just try to hold it down, right?
I'm just so in love with the fact that we have
También la putada, si os habéis fijado, tiene dos fuentes en este lado del mapa, por lo que le interesa colgar en esa parte del mapa, pues igual en otra parte, tienes que alejar del camp, del zoneo, para poder recoger una fuente. Y eso es una putada para ti como
the plague here, my favorite killer in comp DBD. I know I will get a lot of hate for that, but it's just such an interesting set, especially
pájaros aquí, justo por aquí.
on the suffocation pit. You always you always have this difficult approach to the 3 and 4 gen. You have this information tool that the plague basically has built in with the puking. It does take surprisingly long though for Zaka here to get the first infection regarding finding a survivor or infecting the generators they really need to take here. So that is definitely an advantage for JINX that we have 0 infections so far.
That's also where a lot of teams disagree with each other, is the initial approach to the killer,
Nada, un poquito.
whether you should just take the infection at the start and just
Y ya está, ir a abandonar, ¿vale? La plaga se juega muy pasivamente en el early, en plan infectar y ya por otro, ya
get
está.
done hammering gens, or if you just actually just hide out corrupt. Plague is the only killer where that is still done to this day. It used to be meta in comp until, I think, after best of the best.
Para evitar que la infección os suba, ¿vale? Podéis andar. Si andáis, no os sube la infección, pero si corréis, sí.
When people said, you know
O si reparáis, o
oh what guys, maybe this is a bit of a waste of time. Let's just do gens actually.
Vale.
And comp has healed. But yeah,
Si os fijáis, escupitajo y se va, escupitajo y se va, así que hay que jugarlo. También puedes empezar con la plaga en plan muy, digamos, un early muy fuerte, cogiendo una fuente directamente, pero yo no lo recomiendo, ¿vale? No lo recomiendo, mejor poquito a poco y
that's where still a lot of people would disagree. And so far it seems like they are trying to keep 2 people uninfected.
Muy importante, ¿vale? Con la plaga cuando lo juguéis, que aquí arriba, como que deis un poquito de gapo arriba del todo del motor, donde están los focos, se contagia el motor, ¿vale? Y fijaros mucho en esta pantalla de puntuación, ¿vale? Que pone contagioso más 25 puntos. Eso significa que el motor está infectado, ¿vale?
With Moon and
Parece una tontería, pero a veces te quita dedos.
Dark. Kay was forced to because of that chase at the start, and Mads is the one person that sort of just said, okay,
Porque tú dudas, en plan, he dado, no he dado, he dado, no he dado. Si te parece esto, has dado.
I'm done waiting, I'll get on these generators. But it was probably coordinated that they want to keep half healthy and half
Muy buena queda equilibrada.
half infected. I can imagine how that would also affect late game. If one of these healthy people end up going down first, you would still have another healthy person available for the rescue. Because again, obviously, if everybody's injured, you can't really save. And you also want to play around Thanatophobia, so not everybody's gonna take the infection.
Muy bien aquí la Nasi. Y aquí Zaka, yo hubiese metido un poquito de body block en el palet y luego la
That was a really nice dodge by Moon.
Bueno, bien, la he infectado.
Almost avoided that infection. That would have been impeccable. I've never seen anything like that. But yeah, we see Moon does barely get infected by Zaka with the pallet there after sidestepping that so nicely. And they're almost popping a general for it even too, with not a single down yet.
And I love to see that JINX is being a little bit more cautious
Vale, buen momento vas por una fuente, tienes a 2 heridos. Muy
about the generators this trial. They are realizing that they really need to make sure that we are instantly going for the objectives, that
a la calle, disfruta del gancho.
they cannot lose too much time here. They have played a good early game so far, not too many infections at the beginning, dodging the power here. It's not going as fast as Zaka would like to, all the way into the famous comp corner.
Básicamente que hay herido en una esquina, obviamente en esta zona no puede hacer absolutamente nada contra plaga con punto.
They need
Wait
to
for the
make
firefighter.
sure though that they are not only getting their hands on the generator, they need to break the setup that Zaka wants to defend, and that is pretty often here next to the main building on the suffocation pit. First generator
Por poco el motor, por nada, por una vez.
is... That really hurts.
Esto jode mucho, la verdad, como dice el comentarista.
That really hurts, Mathis.
That was like when Xenos played Spirit in the, I think that was AHL finals, when the Generals 19.
Uy, aquí Dark, no sé qué hace aquí tan cerca del gancho, error por su parte.
9.9 at the end, and the they almost. That's kind of how close you got there. That hurts, and.
Hostia, cagada del Dark gigante. ¿Qué haces aquí al lado del gancho? Aquí está el equipo de JINX muy jodido.
Ouch. Oh. Something's happening, Dyer. Something's wrong. I can feel it. And the snowballing that's happening right now. You know, I was talking about how you need to keep one person healthy to go for.
¿Veis? Claro, ya se tienen que curar porque ya tiene que venir uno full sano, bueno, si no, no se puede rescatar.
That rescue. And that was.
Aquí Dark casi una cagada gigantesca de que la hayan pillado.
Dark. But this time around, he wasn't able to clutch it up, similar to what he did in the Dracula game. And he gets Tanner 2-tapped right next to this.
Ya sabéis que el error yo creo que más grande que podéis hacer como superviviente, aparte de durar poco en chase, pero bueno, eso le puede pasar a cualquiera, es caer cerca del gancho. Es que estéis matando a vuestro compañero, literalmente. O sea, es una cagada súper grande. Siempre intentar, si caéis, caer cerca del otro gancho, siempre.
And he doesn't even get it. So he's got two people down right next to each other. Also, in that main building area here. But it's also very much in the open, so Zaka has a lot of potential to control. He
Muy bien, Dark alejándose, al menos eso está bien.
also knows where the three people are now. So we will have to have Moon somehow. Oh yeah.
Pero bueno, ya tiene a Match infectado. Match se ha limpiado una fuente y Match vuelve a estar infectado. Así que a Zaka le sale bien el cambio.
They're just abandoning him. I was gonna say that's probably the safer call here. If they want to save this at all, they would need
No creo que Kai salga gancho, lo dudo mucho.
someone from the other side
El error de Dark ha sido muy grande.
of the map to sort of circle around edge map and try to get a surprise Anuk, flank Zaka, to put it in simpler terms. But yeah, Zaka knows where everybody is now, and I don't think they can realistically recover from this. Or they will at least have to sacrifice K, and they will have to take the 3-gen, 4-gen. I haven't paid attention that closely to the RNG that Zaka's got. It's at least, yeah, it's a 3-gen. I think they will just have to take it, and they don't get a workaround. Oh, Zaka gets it through life.
Que ha dicho, ya que me llevo la hostia, me voy al cuelgue y me cambio por él.
Too.
Hace bien, Match, hace bien.
Maybe they get the Anuk now at least because of that double speed, and Zako's on the other side of the window. Moon pops that second gen finally. But yeah, Mads is going to go down here if he goes to that Anuk. And he will run to the other side of the map here. But to what avail? Zaka will
Y Kai, pues se disfruta del túnel. Va a hacer partida 5 estrellas.
most likely still be able to get that down. This is pretty scary for JINX
Muy bien este control de cámara por aquí, perfecto.
at the moment.
It is very scary. This plague trial
Vale, God Rock con ventana aquí incorporada.
turned from JINX having a good control in the first minute of the game with no infections into them basically trying to defend themselves almost like we're playing against
Por muy poco,
the nurse or blind here.
Con un poco de mal ping lo hubiese dado.
Okay,
He's
we're
trying
all
so hard.
okay, stay
Muy bien, recordad que aquí el healer debe llegar más o menos al tronco para tu saltar.
on the feet. You cannot move that. Okay, you can actually
ego
because
test.
Saka is going around, but this chase, ladies and gentlemen, you don't realize this chase is so deciding for the game.
Aquí F. No llegaría por aquí. Ya no llega, ya no llega. Si hubiese saltado bien, pero por aquí no llega.
Outcome here. We need a recovery.
Pues sí que llegaba. Por aquí muy bien. Zaka volviendo para atrás. Perfecto.
They survive the team, but now it's going to be the down right here. That was longer than I thought. So JINX definitely earned a few seconds for themselves. We see it in the distance. They are already back on the generators. They are getting the third generator out of the way before losing an elimination. Things are slowly starting to settle. The chaos is over, hopefully, but Mats needs to have a good run, Mathis. Otherwise, it's still problems.
I'm surprised, or sort of shocked why or how K went down on that tower there, because it is considered the God Rock, and against M1 killer,
Buena agilidad por parte de Match.
you're practically untouchable. Yeah, this exact tile. If you're playing this long side, you can hold like a certain position or put your camera in a.
Y pues es una God Rock, ¿vale? God Es en plan Dios, pues una roca en plan divina, en plan muy buena para lupear para los proyectos.
Certain angle where you should never go down, but they're allowing Zaka to get bloodlust, and bloodlust is the
Brutal acá con el medium este, brutal.
only way, the only
Se puede seguir dando su proyecto aquí, vale, obviamente, si ya lo habéis visto, pero es bastante difícil.
workaround around this pallet. Yeah, we see that now. Mads also takes the down on this tile, where they should never go down. So I'm surprised usually. What people
Solo ha cogido un poder Zaka, nada más solo.
like calling it on ladder at least. It's like, this is like the true test of ego. When killers don't break that pallet
Muy bien, Zaka teniendo este gancho, impide el motor.
and just committed to trying to
Son tonterías, pero son tonterías que importan mucho en la partida.
light game it somehow. Because usually you should never go down on that pallet if you're patient and if you know the correct angles to hold or the correct positions to hold. But Zaka was successful twice there. So I'm very surprised that it worked out that well. Of course it could be nerves because it's a tourney and not 1v1s. Especially on ladder when no one watches really. But yeah, it's
Lo de esta creo en este motor.
a
Ah, no, estaba en este. Ahí está.
damn shame because you would expect, I think out of everybody playing, you would expect especially JINX to be able to prove themselves on tells like that. So it's, again, it's a shame, but yeah, nerves, bloodlust combined, it made them second guess their options or yeah, the potential they had on that rock. And now they're both stuck in this corner, Dire, and it's gonna be really difficult, really challenging to get
Este ballet es bueno contra la plaga.
back out of this corner because Dark is also
Qué buen equipo parte de CK, brutal.
going to take this hit here, yeah.
No lo doy mirado.
Oh! Nah, that touched him, didn't it?
I think so, yeah, but it wasn't enough of a.
Nah, muy bien aquí, Zaka. Le encierra, pam, pim, pam. La casitos, reventa.
Okay, now it's very clear the Dark is going to go down here. Moon
very
with the
dark for Jinx.
responsibility and
Diría que llega antes del segundo juego.
dark times, don't jinx it. I was just about to say, for Zaka it should be very clear where Moon is located because the only objective that is now remaining for you is rescuing the team member.
Yep.
But Zaka wants to keep it safe, wants to hook the survivor and not risk any potential crawl away, and then later you have some pickups
Yo otra fuente. Los va a destrozar. Se guarda la fuente para el mejor momento.
and pressure back onto the generators. And I also think Zaka is in a brilliant position to have quite some pressure on the survivors. You have more powers available. Very understandable that he instantly picks that up.
Le están dando poderes, que eso está muy fuerte para la plaga. Este poder de plaga está jodidamente fuerte.
Moon is cleansing, so you have another power available after this one. You know that you will find the survivors on the generators because the survivors now have to risk something at the gens. If they don't touch the gens immediately, they might not get a second chance to do it in the near future. So if JINX wants to make a significant difference here, they have to finish it. And once again, we are on this 2 gens remaining, 1 gen remaining mark that we have just seen on the Dark Lord. It seems to be the magical
Está vigilando por la grieta, no se la va a colar.
limit for Team JINX, Mathis. For some reason, they cannot go beyond that.
Yeah, it's their cap. They can't make it fast.
No tira el pared porque si no coge vómito y le da, ¿vale? No puede tirar el pared.
But it's, again, pretty sad. I feel like JINX could have done much
Ahora va a tirar el pared, seguramente.
better here. And I almost want to say, I mean, if it wasn't for Zaka, they should be on par with their opponents here, or the remaining roster of Team NOKRON. Ivan and Zaka are just such menaces that it can be very difficult to, it's very difficult to work around that. And yeah, the patience game
Muy bien, Zaka.
by
brutal.
Zaka. He was never going to push that pallet. Or actually, no. You know, that's something I pointed out earlier is that Zaka sometimes just surprisingly pushes pallets and it catches
Ahí está viendo con una erupción.
people off guard. It is so risky when you're in Plague's ability, though. Sometimes pushing it can be really effective because again, you also get that body blocking aspect of it too. Similar with how, or what we saw with Mads on Dracula, where he had the ability up and then pushed himself past the survivor into the pallet so they wouldn't get to drop it. It's also what you can do with Plague, or any killer if you just hold W through the tile, and to a certain extent they won't be able to vacuum back into it anymore. They did have 1 gen quite far, and they do have 1 gen very far from those 3 gen.
Pero se ha ido por aquí hacia el saca y están a colina.
So I'm hoping they can bring it down to 4k1 if push comes to shove and they still end up being 4k. I feel like 1 more gen is very realistic here, minimum for JINX, and they should get it done.
Claro, dice, voy a coger la fuente, aunque todavía le quede mitad de poder, pensar que la plaga bajo sobre todo en aquella zona no va a venir aquí apenas. Entonces, ya que viene a pegar esa erupción, pues pilla la esta. Así que perfecto, hecho por parte de Zek.
But Zaka is aware that they might be lurking somewhere near this generator. He's refilling his ability too, whilst scouting the map for a hiding player that is taking care of this generator on the shack side of the map. But yeah, Zaka knows how much more difficult it can be leaving 2 survivors on the generator, so he's hastily making his way back to the top side, or to main rather.
Es que no puedo gritar porque directamente mi mujer me mata y con razón. ¡No! ¡Dios! ¡Qué pedazo de gapo! Está el motor nada. Al toque. Pedazo de gapo brutal.
There's no way.
Nine.
No!
Acaba de ganar la partida ahora mismo Zek.
Oh, nice!
The double?
What jinx!
Esto sin gapo obviamente habría sido imposible.
You could have had one guy, like, camp the pallet and go for the stun at least, right?
Sí, lo que dice el caster es que uno quedase aquí agachado. En plan, para que se viniese la plaga a meterle el paletazo y quitarle el poder. Pero aquí falta un poquito de, ¿cómo se dice? Picardía por parte del superviviente.
And even if that person had gone down, the other person could have still been on the gen. And they could both,
This is a
they
sad
both
moment.
get commit and they both get slapped. That could have been all gens done, by the way. If they had popped that. Nah. I'm at a loss of words.
Tomaron la trampilla, que es la que saque, entonces aquí el killer está un poquito jodido, no podrán vigilar a Moon porque tiene esa pendiente de trampilla.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are taking a short moment of silence for Team Jinx. Okay, that's enough. Final chase, ladies and gentlemen, that's it!
Pues brutal, brutal. O sea, le han hecho 3 motores con plaga, o sea... Brutal, de verdad que plaga es muy difícil de estas partidas contra demás gente tan buena, o sea... Nada, se queda de polla de Zaka, o sea, ha jugado como un dios, literalmente. Muy de Zaka, perfecto, o sea, maravilloso. Pues, si os fijáis, solo permiten una linterna y un petardos, no permiten nada más contra tal, no hay, creo que sí queda equilibrada, hay una agilidad interesante, éxito bastante y ya está, pero no se permite sprint ni fajador, obviamente. Vale, pues vamos para la siguiente partidita, 4-0-2, ahí está, vale.
6, ladies and gentlemen, in this matchup here. K on the killer side. New phase.
Ok, no lo conozco, ¿vale? No lo conozco. Pero lo tiene muy difícil, ¿eh? Muy difícil. Va a poner una Ghoul. Interesante. Este adorno amarillo, si no recuerdo mal, ¿vale? Que hace mucho que no juego plaga, hace que la infección en los objetos dure más tiempo, ¿vale? Bueno, objetos en todo lo del mapa, ya sea armarios, tótems, motores, ventanas, cualquier interruptores de puerta, en todo permanece más tiempo.
As Mathis pointed out, not regularly seen on
Para mí es mucho mejor lado morado, ¿eh? Mucho mejor lado morado.
Correct
Killer,
myself. Apparently, he always plays Plague for Jinx.
Okay, then we just don't have him on the radar, or people
Yeah.
banned Blake, and that's why we haven't seen. We
Yeah.
definitely don't see him very often on the stage in DBDL. So maybe this wonder weapon here can make a good turn for us.
We'll have to see. He has to have a super oppressive early game, and he does have the 4-gen to speak for.
Tiene 4 motores en esta zona, es mucha ventaja para el killer.
Okay, no, he's... I was gonna say, I thought that pool for a second was the other generator, but no, it is the one in practically the middle of the map. But it's sort of still open to the main building site, so he has this somewhat 4-gen around. Could have been better, so K does not have the RNG on his side completely, but it also could have been much worse. He does only have 2 generators around Shack, so you will most likely play this game around main building.
Muy bien, Iván, se está moviendo muy bien.
Gonna try to get all of these resources eliminated early on to essentially have this dead zone for this entire half of the
Brutal, Iván, Santa María.
map. Yeah, it is sort of a... Oh, auto-aimed into the wall there. It is
Los está reciclando de locos.
sort of a 4-gen. Gonna be... I don't think so, actually. I think he has the... It's gonna sound like I'm talking about a football roster, but he's got a 3-1-3 formation. And yeah, that... that RNG, I'm not sure if it's realistic for him to win
Si Van de verdad se la está sacando,
now, because he would have had to have that 4-gen if he wants to get a realistic 4K on 2. So it will come down to mechanics more than the macro game.
Para mí aquí error grande de la plaga, porque está jugando con un addon y no le está sacando fruto, por así decirlo, porque están los oponentes poniendo al otro lado del mapa, excepto que a él le interesa proteger esta zona porque hay 4 motores, pero bueno, con este 5 motores, allí hay 2 y punto, pero no sé, a ver si le interesa esta jugada.
Yeah, Kay trying the classic way, right? This looks like right now how the Plague should face a survivor team. You are taking some infection at the beginning, but you are staying in control. You are looping the Plague basically, and it's not going to be an easy or free down at the beginning. We can see it here. We are approaching the 2-minute mark for the first chase. We're even beyond that at this point, so this is what NOKRON knows as well. They need to stay in charge. They need to stay in control of the suffocation peak, because then it will be possible to just get rid of the 4 generators that we need to see here. That is also the luxury win condition that we see here for Team NOKRON. They have everything at their hands to take the win, and if they are not making too much of a risk with the power coming out now and more pulling back, hiding, they should be fine if they are surviving this.
Yeah, they hid out, or don't want to say hid
Yo creo que se está equivocando al venir a esta zona, que hay aquí.
out the corrupt, sort of. I really like that Kay didn't overcommit to that chase on Ivan at the start, because he should have realized early on if he had committed fully to that chase on main building, he'd be chasing in the corrupted gens, and then Ivan's teammates could have already gotten through the other generators. And again, they only
Falla la linterna.
need to pop 4,
Acá hay que mejorar la linterna,
so it would have been really worth it, and they don't even need to
Uf, muy buena esta equipo por de aquí.
break a 3-gen, because if they only need to break, if K had one, a 4-gen, because that would be 4 gens, meaning win condition would be met.
Muy bueno, que hay aquí en el saqueo, pero muy bien.
Yeah, K finally has this ability up and manages to get a really nice hit onto Zaka here. Zaka doesn't get around the corner, and I was gonna say he's probably
Gancho para adelante.
not going for this basement hook. Would be a waste of
Pero creo que la hacen el motor antes.
time. He does get that eruption through pretty quickly, which I didn't expect at first. I really thought when K kicked that generator.
Interesante, eso es porque están los 2 oponentes. Perdón, que es muy tarde. Es que mirar qué hora es, tío. Pero mirar 1:07 de la mañana, se ve, ¿no? Sí, 1:07 de la mañana. O sea, me cago en la madre y me parió. Mañana trabajo, o sea, chavales, me merezco un super like. Nah, ya sabéis que es broma. ¿Por dónde iba? Que... No, se me ha ido.
On his left at the moment, that he's looking at right now.
Ah, sí, que están reparando un motor, o sea, casualmente están reparando un motor porque si no ya le habían el casco motor,
That eruption kick may have been a waste of time, because again, you don't expect fast downs of Plague. But yeah, he was able to get that down onto Zaka, is able to get that first pain resonance just now, and gets the first round of eruption pops as at least
¿Veis? Pum, pum, y Marcos tendrá otro por allá.
as well. We heard Zynox scream earlier, but then must have been already at 99. But yeah, Zynox was just going to make quick use of it. That is 2 gens popped for 1 stage. And yeah, again, dire considering the win con. Youch.
Big ouch indeed. 3 minute 19 in the early game, slowest Plague down this year in 20 Plague trials. Shout out to Toby, our tournament analyst. 20 Plague.
¿Os imagináis que se pudiese lanzar alquiler en plan como las bolas de nieve cuando es el evento este de Navidad? Pues igual, que se lanzasen al alquiler en plan ¡pum! Estaríamos en Vietnam, literalmente.
Trials and 19 Plagues were faster than JINX. That is unfortunately a sad statistic here.
Yeah. I feel like it adds
yeah.
to the theme that we've got going on between these 2 teams.
Yeah, and the problem is I don't even feel like JINX played bad, right? They played good. They were fighting. They were trying. They showed good strategy. I really feel like that, yeah, the time they gain does not end in the generators being repaired.
Now we're back down to these 50s that elsewhere from Team JINX should be really good.
Dios mío, Zaka, por favor, deja de sacártelo.
that, but again, Zarko's also a ladder novice. So he didn't play in the last tournament,
Está jugando Zaka que te cagas.
but he has played a lot. And he, funny enough, he also
¿Por qué poco, Santa María bendita?
very originally, that was very close. Very originally, he also comes from what I spoke about before the match even started.
Ya está, se gana un motor más ya. JINX.
He comes from that bubble of Spanish 1v1 community.
Yo a la nivel 2 ya no puedo hacer nada aquí, Zaka.
Too,
Lo ha hecho que te cagas.
originally. So he's been around that for good over half a decade. At least in that 1v1 field. And when he started off as the Eternity Survivor and Blight player way back in the day, before he was on anyone's radar. But yeah, he was already in that community, essentially. They do pop the third gen now, which means tie. So one more, and the deal is sealed.
Deal is sealed indeed, and it looks like the deal is ready to be signed when we're looking at the
No puede tunelear, si tunelea se muere la partida.
progress that NOKRON has on the generator here. K is coming around one more time, pushing away the survivor that is currently working on it, which is Marcos, but we have a relatively safe pallet here. So that's going to be one hell of a challenge to just
Han preparado muy bien los supervivientes.
M1 mind game this out of this survivor. We also have to take care of another
Nada, la tienen contra las cuerdas, la tienen este motor y el otro. Está muy jodida la plata.
generator that is already close to completion. We cannot even really pick up the power, I feel like. Even that is too long. I would be afraid with going over towards this pool that gen number 4 is already ready to go.
It is so close, and he still has 3 stacks of pain res remaining as well. If he just needs to get it down. But how realistic is it right now? What K has to do, the position he's stuck in, he has to just go from point A to point B, kick gen, kick gen, kick gen, kick gen. He doesn't have the time to commit to any of these chases. There's like 3
Estarán todos por aquí, seguramente, ¿vale? O 3 mínimos.
gens that are past the 50% mark. 2 of those are past 80.
Porque no merece la pena arriesgarse. No merece la pena.
So, trying to find someone hiding, I don't think they would have left the gens. I think they're still on them. Yeah, I'm surprised why K is leaving this area. Yeah, they were on it the entire time.
They're not scared.
Thanos no está herido, ¿vale? De momento.
Yeah, as well, I think there's 4 people. They need to only pop 1 gen. Yeah, he may have his ability up, but all they need to do is just get on the 2 people on each side. If he comes to them, run
Más respetados.
corner, take the down, the other side pops.
Aquí ha faltado un poquito de longitud.
Like, this is a sealed deal to me. This is similar to when Orban
Muy bien protegida con el árbol. Aquí
I played against Trauma 3 years ago. Yeah, of course I remember that game. But that's the exact
¿Por qué?
strategy that we did. So, that's what they're doing right now as well, and K didn't see it.
Hostia, pues yo casi que me hubiese dejado pegar un hit, ¿eh? Pues te dejas pegar un hit, te hieres, pillas un poquito de carrerilla y puedes aguantar un poquito más.
Gets that down though, and they didn't call eruption. Zynox, Zynox, Zynox.
Ahí se le ve con erupción.
It is actually
Wagging my
crazy.
finger.
When the survivor
Aquí se le ve con erupción, aquí yendo por detrás de troncos y aquí se ve a otros supervivientes. Así que digamos que ahí ellas ya que mate prácticamente.
have put themselves in
No puede parar.
such a strong position that they don't fear a plague with power, then you know that something is going fundamentally wrong. I think Kay realizes that as well. Thank God we have a hook stage now that brings back a little bit of pressure. We were talking about being a little bit too confident though, Mathis, and how it backfired before. We can only pray that NOKRON is not going to suffer from this and that they are maybe now getting a little bit too much ahead of themselves.
Ya está, victoria para nosotros.
But there it is. Decision taken 2-0 overall. We won't replay tied sets anymore, meaning set number 4 can also not bring a different decision anymore. It would maximum be a 2-1. So
All 5.
NOKRON taking the win here. And now even taking stage out of the door most likely. And I feel like that is very deserved, even though JINX played very well today.
Dice algo como que la victoria la tiene muy merecida NOKRON, pese a que JINX haya jugado muy bien. Vamos, que ya con esto, aunque NOKRON haya conseguido el 2-0, no... Esto no se había pasado en la partida esta de Dracula, pero bueno, está dando la victoria a NOKRON. Si alguien entiende más en inglés que yo la verdad voy bastante verde en inglés, que me lo traduzca.
I feel like it's more a case of the overall score doesn't reflect how close this actually was, but the individual game.
Recordad, al final de partida contra Plaga, siempre curaros, ¿vale? Ahí ya curaros todos. No pasa nada. Es lo que hay que hacer.
Did, especially the Dracula game, because that threaded the needle. And Zaka was still able to get through on top, and Mats wasn't able to get the same result, or not the same, but a better result. That's what I should rather say. Despite it being their pick. So in the end,
Va la trampilla. Aquí sale la trampilla.
what we see is NOKRON very... Oh, that's Hatch as well. Add insult
Se escapa.
to injury. Oh,
Brutal. Brutal como han jugado los supervivientes. ¿Veis? Ha hecho... ¿Cuántos? ¿2 cuelgues? 2 cuelgues. ¿Veis? Esto ya es algo más normal, ¿vale? Es algo más terrenal, por así decirlo. Lo que ha hecho antes Zaka con la plaga de hacerse 4K y le han hecho 3 motores es una ida de olla, literalmente, ¿vale? Lo habrá parecido hacer fácil porque me es muy jodido. Esto es ya algo más normal. Entre 2 cuelgues, 4, 5 cuelgues es una partida más normal de plaga. A ver, 2 cuelgues es poco, las cosas como son. Pero vamos, 4 o 5 cuelgues es algo ya así más normal. Y eso os fijéis, ya aquí acaba la partida, ¿vale? Ya la siguiente partida... creo que le toca a otros equipos que son Cynic contra Sinners. De partido lo voy a traer, ¿vale? Porque a ambos equipos les conozco y de hecho Sinners está uno de mis kills favoritos, ya sabéis quién es, que es Jason, así que este partido lo traeré sin ninguna duda. Así que nada, yo os digo, si alguien entiende mejor el inglés que me lo diga, creando la victoria con un 2-0 a NOKRON. Y nada, muy bien jugado los españolitos ahí. Un beso para todos vosotros. Y bueno, los jugadores me refiero. si sigan a ver esto. Y nada, espero que os haya gustado el partidito, el análisis, que ya hayáis aprendido un poquitín. Y nada, nos vemos la semana que viene con más vídeos por el canal. Recordad que esta noche hay directito del 100 mecánicas en el canal del Papumero en Quick. Así que nada, si os veo esta noche, un besito para vosotros y nada, que os vaya a hacer el fin de semana. Chao, 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 chao. No paro de dar besos. Chao, chao.